This is your video for the day 1 air dry clay project. So first you'll just want to get out all your supplies and your canvas to make sure that the red clay doesn't stain any tables. And you'll be making a succulent holder. So you'll also need your soil and your small succulent, but you can put it to the side for right now until your project dries afterwards. So your bag of air dry clay will have 2 different sections. The larger section will be for the body, and the smaller section will be for the head and the 4 feet. So you want to keep those separated and don't mix them together. All that I'm doing right now is just taking the 2 lumps of clay that you have and just making them into a ball and making sure that there's no air bubbles. There's a few different techniques that you can use when smoothing out your clay. You can just use your finger and go over any cracks to smooth it out, or you can use the palm of your hand so that it makes it into a more rounder shape. Like what I'm doing here. And then just going through and using my fingers to smooth it over. You mainly just want to do this with the larger lump of clay, because for the smaller one you're going to separate it into different pieces anyways. But once you smooth over your larger piece of clay, just take the very tip of your thumb and press it in the very center and go all the way down until you have about 1/2 inch at the bottom. You don't want to go through, but you don't want to make it too thick. Now once you do that, you're going to start pressing the sides of the ball so that they come out, but you want to start at the bottom so that you don't make the top rim too thin. So you're going to do a little pinching motion with your index finger and your thumb, or if it's too hard for you, then you can use both your middle finger, your index finger, and then your thumb on the inside of the ball of clay. And you're going to start at the bottom and you're going to press your way out to make the walls thinner, about 1/2 inch. You're going to go in circular motions starting from the bottom, but do not start at the top. And now you will focus on the rim of your bowl, and you'll just pinch very lightly to make sure that it stays a circular shape. Just make sure that you go really slow. And then I'm just kind of fixing it up and making sure that it stays a circular shape. And then I'm going to take the bottom and just press it on to the table so that it's flat. And I'm going to go through and fix the rim so that it has more of a circle shape, whether it be pressing some areas of the clay back together so it folds over. And there you have your bowl. And you can set it aside. And then for your smaller ball of clay, you're going to take 4 different sections off of it to make the feet. The first set that I did were too small, so I'm gonna re-pinch them off. An easy way to make sure that you have even pieces is taking the smaller ball of clay and rolling it into a coil, and then separating that into 2. Then you take one of those pieces and you break that in half as well. And then you take both of those pieces and then you break those in half so that you have 4 equal pieces, and then 1 larger piece for the head. And now, using the 2 palms of your hands, you're just going to roll them into balls. And once you finish rolling the feet into balls of clay, just go ahead and take the head and roll that into a ball as well. And now you have a bowl for the body, a head, and 4 feet. To make the feet into the shape that you need, you will take each ball of clay and you will very lightly run it using your fingers to make it a long coil, and then you're going to tap the edges onto the canvas or the table to make sure that they're flat. So you'll have a cylinder shape, but don't make them too thin so that they can't hold up the weight of the body and the succulent and everything. And you'll do that with all 4 of those smaller pieces of clay. Once you have finished all 4 of your feet, you're going to flip over your bowl. Make sure not to bend any of the edges if it's too heavy. And before you even apply or attach any of them, I just like to set them on there to try to make sure that they are all equally spaced apart to make sure that it'll hold up the body. So after it looks about right, then you can take them back off and I'll show you how to attach them. You will get your bag of supplies and you're going to pull out that little stick, the light colored one, and you'll use that to attach them. There's going to be an angled side on it and then a flat side. And you also want to get out your smaller stick, and that's going to be your pointer stick that you'll use for the eyes later on. And now I'm just showing you how you can blend clay together using the angled side. And I'm going to move 3 of the feet so I don't knock them off. I'm going to kind of turn it so that it has a little suction. And then use the angled side of the stick, sorry you can't really see it. And then I'm going to brush down so that I'm mending them together. It's gonna look ugly at first, but we'll go back and fix it. We just want it to make sure that it'll stay there and not come off. Once you have done that, I kind of take my fingers around and I push down, and then I'll use my thumb and I'll clean up any of the edges that the stick was too rough to get. And using the tip of your thumb, you can rotate it so that it'll smooth out closer to where you're joining the clay pieces together. And then once you kind of fix it up, then you can do the other three and make sure before you actually attach them, you kind of figure out where you want it to be so that they're all spaced apart evenly. And then again, I'm going to be twisting it so that there's a section between the two pieces. And then I'm going to use the angled side of my stick and blend it down. Once you have attached all 4 of your legs, you're just going to make sure that where you have placed them is good areas, and I flipped mine over to make sure that it sits flat before it starts to dry. And I just kind of fix them, push them down on the canvas a little bit so that they're flatter. And then you'll see that it is now sturdy and it doesn't wobble. And then I just fixed the shape of my bowl since I was messing it up to put on the feet. So I am going to do the rhinoceros shape, so I think that's what it's called. You can choose any of the others. There's cats and dogs, other dinosaurs. I'm just gonna do my favorite one that was pictured on there. So then I'm just gonna take the other piece of clay that we have and just use your index finger and your thumb and pinch off 3 really small pieces, and that's going to be my horns. You wouldn't do this if you were doing a cat or a dog. You might just take off 2 for the ears, maybe a small piece for a nose. And then I'm just going to take my ball of clay and roll it back into a circle, and then using the end pieces of my palms, applying more pressure than the middle of my palms, I'm going to roll it so that it is skinnier on one side of the coil than the other. And that will give the nose shape. And then I'm going to take my 3 fingers and pinch and kind of fix it up a little bit so that I get my rhinoceros head shape. And then for the back of the head, you want it to be flat when you apply it to your body, so I'm just going to tap it on the canvas. And then I'm going to take my 2 fingers and pinch, because they have this horn, I don't really know how to explain it. So if you're doing the rhinoceros, it's actually going to look like a traffic cone. And there's my head, and then I'm going to take my 3 small pieces, roll them into balls. And I'm just going to take 1 finger on the edge of the ball of clay, and just like you did with the edge of palms onto the head, you're going to roll it so that it kind of creates a horn shape. And then I'm going to tap the end of it onto the canvas to make it flat, just like I did with the head. So again, taking your finger on the edge of the ball of clay and very lightly rolling it, so you're just doing the one side. And then taking the bottom and flattening it onto the canvas. You're going to do that with all 3 pieces. Now for a rhinoceros, they usually have 2 horns up behind the eyes, and then they have 1 on the nose. So before I even attach them, I'm going to try to place it to see how it would look. And then as the same technique as we did with the feet onto the body, you're going to do the same thing with the horns. You can use the angled piece of your stick, or you can use your fingers since they're smaller. I decided to use the stick. And then just using my fingers to smooth it over and press it down. And once you have completed all 3 of your horns, if you're doing a rhinoceros, I'm going to take the little dowel rod stick and use the pointy side and just lightly press it in, not too far, and then I kind of twist it to make it bigger than it actually is, to make the eyes. And now we are going to apply it to the body. Make sure that where you apply the head is where you want it to be. And it's not in the middle of one leg. Make sure that you put it in between 2 legs and it's facing forward. Now I'm going to flatten the bowl a little bit so it can fit on there. And then I'm just going to press on both sides, inside the bowl and outside of the rhinoceros head, to kind of form them together, make sure there's no air bubbles or anything. And then I leave a lip at the top of the head that isn't connected to the bowl. And then I'm going to blend around to make sure that it stays and doesn't fall off. And just smooth it over with my thumb. And then on the inside of the bowl, I'm going to take the lip, and although you can't really see it, I'm going to also mend that onto the back of the head so that there's more security. And then I'm going to reposition the rhinoceros to make sure that it stands how I want him to before he starts to dry. And I'm going to wait to put in the succulent in the dirt until it dries a little bit more, because you can't water succulent on wet clay. So I'm going to take the paint, the black paint that was in the bag, not the black glaze, And you can use the paintbrushes that was in the box, or you can use the edge piece of your dowel stick. One thing that I'm going to do before I put in any dirt is take the stick and poke holes so that there's drainage for your plant. Also, so that water doesn't stay inside of the bowl and create it wet again, because air dry clay can be reusable once you wet it. You don't have to do as many holes as I did. I just wanted to make sure that I had enough drainage, and then I took my finger and smoothed out the inside so that there weren't any rough edges. Now get out your paint, and then you can use the paintbrush or the stick, as I've said. And you're just going to be using that to fill in color on the eyes. And then I made a mouth, and then I added some feet. For the eyes, I just used the stick because it was the same size. And I thought that the paintbrush would end up getting it too much on the outside of the eye, more so than the inside. So I just put some paint on the edge and twisted it around on the inside of the eye. And then I just added some little black edges to his horns to give him some color. And then I'm going to make 3 lines on each of the feet. This will just give it some more detail, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And then when you are done with the feet, I'm going to attempt to make a smiley face on him. Although I did have to redo it a couple times because it wasn't even. Once you have let your clay dry and your paint dry, now you can add in your succulent and your dirt. So go ahead and untape your bag of soil. And then be careful with the drainage holes, it might fall through a little bit if the soil's dry. Just go ahead and pour that right in there. And then you pinch at the base of your succulent so that you don't pull off any leaves. And you would make sure not to do it too fast where you rip any of the roots. And then you're going to create a little pocket in the soil and place the roots in there. And then any dirt that I had left over from the succulent container I'm going to put on the side so it kind of holds it up and gives it a little more structure. And then I'm going to pat down around it so that it's secure. And now you have your rhinoceros succulent holder. Thanks for watching.